Hello, I'm Artsy Brooke and welcome to my channel. So today we are going to be looking at this WatercolorSnacks palette that was in the winter box, and I really did like it, but it's just not quite my taste, so I recently ordered a primary yellow. Yes, I've used it already once. I was doing a bunch of swatches with it. And to me, this more fits the palette that I personally would like. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a mixing chart, as well as we're going to make a piece with these paints. And I think it's definitely going to be a piece that I feel a little more comfortable doing now that we have some yellow, and I can bring in more warmer hues, which I think I prefer in my painting. So why don't we get started? Now to start this, I just want to say that with everything online lately, everything is sped up, and with this color mixing chart, this is extremely sped up, and I don't even show how long it took me to get these grid lines. And even though I was trying to make myself think, okay, I do not have to have perfect grid lines, it still took me over a half an hour to set this up, just because of how my brain wants everything to be perfect. So when considering to do a mixing chart like this, keep that in mind. It takes a lot of time. I spent over 45 minutes doing the actual painting with the mixing of the colors, and that takes a lot of time. So if you do want to try one of these mixing charts, I say go for it. It helps a lot, but also consider how long it's going to take. So the one good thing about this is this was a limited palette, and I really wanted to see what I could get out of these colors. And the maroon brown that was in the palette was one I really wasn't sure how it was going to react to a bunch of the different paints. Now, how I have it set up, you can sort of see my notes on the side, is basically the diagonal across from upper left hand to lower right hand is the pure colors, and then it's just a grid. So in the left hand side, every single one is mixed with that maroon brown, and so it goes the maroon brown, the red, one of the blues, second blue, the green color, and then the yellow. And then that is also across the top, and then within each square I just line up in the chart and then mix those two together, and I try to do different ratios of each one, because when you actually do this chart, there are the same color combination on either side, so that's where I like to do different ratios. Now this does help a lot. I was able to figure out how I could mix things a lot better, and I think for this palette it was really good. I find that I don't use this type of mixing chart for a lot of things, because when I go into my other palettes, I've worked with it a little bit to figure out how I like to mix them. Now for the art piece, I ended up using some prompts from Mermaid. So there are two prompt lists I use. I actually went back and did an older prompt from the official Mermaid list, and then the other one that I ended up doing was an Instagram account. I'll put it on the screen when I find it. This person created a prompt list, but it's of different poses, and I found that this one has been the best list for me to follow. Is just all these different poses, because sometimes if I'm not making something to match a story that's in my head, I don't always think of what to do for a pose. So I think this was really easy. I just thought of a prompt. Okay, how do I pose a mermaid, because I can't use real life poses, and this prompt list really was beneficial, and I have been so much enjoying it in Mermaid. And I will admit I haven't done a ton of Mermaid so far. You can go over to my Instagram to see some of the Mermaid things, but again, there's not a lot this year. I've been dividing my time up between a bunch of different things, so I haven't had as much time for Mermaid. And I will say, once I added that yellow to this palette, it has been making it so much better. I really have been enjoying having this yellow in the palette. It definitely is making it more me. And on a whole, because I was doing mermaid stuff and the palette, even with the yellow bringing some warmth to it, that red is more of a cool red in there, so it makes the whole palette still shift towards cooler colors. And I think that is really beneficial for having an underwater scene, the cool colors and the water, and I think that really helped. But in my overall opinion, I think I like more warmer palettes or more neutral palettes that have warmer elements and cooler elements, and that just seems to be my style at the moment. Now, I haven't really figured out what my style is for color palette wise, and it's been something that I've been struggling with so much, and it's a struggle because I want to then buy so many paints, but I'm starting to discern which palettes I'm not liking as much versus which palettes I enjoy. And that's something that is very difficult. And a lot of people say, well, you'll find your style, you'll find your style. Well, me not finding my style in what color palette I wanted has resulted in me having so many more paints than I could possibly use in a few years span. And I have not had to buy any replacements for any of my supplies yet because I just kept on getting new ones to try new things. And that's something where I agree with the take your time, you don't need to find a style, it'll just naturally develop. But you might want to figure out what type of color palette you like and what color palette matches your painting style, because in the end, you don't want to have a bunch of paints that you don't use. Now, for me personally, I love having a rainbow. I will find that I use different palettes for different moods, but there are things that I still go back to, and I think that's just a comfort zone. And for me personally, I love pushing myself out of my comfort zone. I mean, all of Mermaid, I haven't been doing much of it, but that's because it's pushing myself out of my comfort zone. And I find pushing yourself out of your comfort zone to be very important. So I'm working on trying to draw faces and improving that, figuring out what my style is, just so that I can hopefully move forward and work on potentially picture books that have people's faces. So going out of your comfort zone is really beneficial, and I've really been enjoying it with Mermaid. So here's the color mixing chart as well as the piece that I created. Now, color mixing charts are really beneficial, but I will say they do take a lot of time. And just speaking about time for a second, just wanted to give a reminder. I know I need this reminder every once in a while too, is that everyone on social media is not doing their entire paintings in the span of a video or anything. Everything's sped up. I need to give myself a reminder about it all the time because I feel like I'm such a slow painter. Just for full disclosure, it did take a long time to do each of these with setting this up because I wanted to be precise than not precise. This took over an hour to do this color mixing chart. it is really beneficial, and I wouldn't have had the info I got from just mainly this color, this maroon brownish color that creates really awesome browns. I wouldn't have gotten that unless I did this mixing chart. But I find that I like to play with paints, and that sort of helps me learn how paints behave. And so that is a long time to spend on just a little chart. And then going over to the art piece, I ended up taking, I think I calculated over 3 hours when I got to the point of sketching everything and then doing all of the line work and the painting. Speaking about the sketching and everything, I normally don't include it. Let me know if you want to see a little bit of the sketching process. I'm not as confident with it, so it would be a lot of I sketch something, I erase it, I sketch it, I erase it. So it is a little bit of a process. But when you look at something like this took me over 3 hours to complete from start to finish. And I just wanted to give that reminder that, yeah, social media, everything looks faster. So just wanted to give that reminder. And I did love how this ended up turning out. I do love how the yellow brought out some other colors. Now, even though this is the closest to the pure yellow here, I did do an underpainting of blue, so it does make it a little bit greeny. But that's just also to give the effect of it being underwater, and I think it turned out fantastic. I am so proud of this piece. It's definitely a step in the right direction when doing stuff with a person, having more of a background. I'm really challenging myself to do these longer pieces, though I barely get a chance to do them, maybe like one a week, maybe one every other week. But I am working on a lot more of them. And I just wanted to say something about this background here. I was trying to replicate what I feel like underwater looks like when I was scuba diving. And I feel like I sort of replicated it, but also not quite. I feel like it almost is looking too much sky. But maybe it's just for the fact that I have her sitting on a stump that ended up sinking into the water. So, I don't know. Or maybe it was an old one flooded. I didn't quite decide. I was also sort of going murky lake, but didn't want to make it too murky. I don't know. I feel like it gives off the vibe, and I feel like I could do a little bit of tweaks. Anyway, I'd like to hear what you thought of the piece and the video, and I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing, and I really hope to see you again. Have a bat-tastic day. Bye.